up, guys? Boro here, showing you the build that I use to get through this solo flawless GM Battlegrounds Europa. As you can see, I used a Wish Ender with a really bad crafted roll of the Trustee. A decent Storm Chaser if you're in a fire team. Didn't really benefit me on firing line here, but I used it for the Clown cartridge. As you can see, some of the mods that I used weren't really the best. Here you have my aspects and fragments. I did choose a Void Hunter with the Graviton forfeit so I could get some really good uptime on those melees and that invisibility. Now my PS5 did not capture the first 2 minutes of my initial run, so I went back through so that I could show everybody my pathing here in order to get to that first room without having to deal with a whole lot of these ads. I wanted to include that and kind of give everybody the thought process behind why I do what I do, why I prioritize the ads that I do, because I've noticed a lot of creators don't really give commentary on these videos to let people get into their thought process. I think it's beneficial sometimes for players to know how people who do content like this actually think about approaching things. Now, as you can see, when I get through this door here, I want to hit that quick invis. Now, I do throw a grenade here to try and take out as many of the drag as possible. The reason I do that is because when I go up to this right side, they will constantly spam the shock sticks. It's very important to remember the Vandals tracking bullets cannot come up here unless you're in their line of sight, but those shock sticks will constantly get spammed up here. The first champion I'm going to focus on here out of the two barriers is this one up on the ledge, because he can hit me with that Hive splinter gun, and it makes it very difficult to stay in this spot very long when he can two-shot me with that gun. So once I have him taken care of, I'm kind of going to go back down here and take out some of those drag and some of those Vandals, kind of clean up the ads a little bit. I do know I have that other barrier champion down there. The only reason I'm not going after him at the moment is because getting the smaller ads out of the way first sometimes is more helpful to you than taking out a champion, especially if the champion is not threatening you in your current position. As you can see, that was the break there. It looks like for this initial run here, I actually eliminated that regular Taken Knight that was down there. He does have an arc shield. It's always good to get him out of the way early as well. Usually when you get him and enough Fallen out of the way, it'll trigger the second ad spawn, which should just have a lot more of those resilient Vandals along with some Shanks. As you can see, all those shock sticks that were getting thrown up there, if I hadn't taken out some of the dregs when I did, that would have been a bigger problem, and it would have flushed me out of cover, probably into the line of fire of one of those Vandals, which could have got me killed. The big thing with this room here is just to remember to play patient. You don't want to push up into the room too far into the room too early. You want to make sure you kind of eliminate all the threats you possibly can from a distance first before you actually start making your way up into the room. I think it took me a good 10 or 12 minutes to clear this room. I probably could have went a little bit faster if I would have used my super more. But I deliberately played very passively in this room. Remember, when you're solo in something like this, there's no rush to actually get through these rooms. You can only die once anyway, so losing all your revives after that 45-minute marker is really not that big of a deal. Now, as you can see, once those Resilient Vandal and the Captain spawn right there, I like to super them immediately so they're not sitting there spamming me with those homing bullets. Now, I did fall into some Exploder Shank right there, as you saw. I actually lucked out a lot that did not kill me. The reason I like to drop down when those Exploder Shank and the Wretches come on that third ad wave is because they can actually go through the door that's up there on the perch that I had set up. and they'll just kind of teleport in behind you, and you might not realize that they're there, and it can end a run very, very quickly. So I always like to kind of drop down and address those when they spawn. As you can see, I've done a pretty good job of getting the majority of the ads down. Once you get the first 3 waves down and your champions, what ends up happening is the ads will start to spawn farther back in the room, but you're going to have 2 servitors to deal with as well as 2 tracer shanks. I recommend playing at a very safe distance and eliminating the servitors first, and then immediately following that by eliminating the tracer shanks. If you can get the tracer shanks earlier, that's good too. The servitors are very dangerous because they can shield some of the captains and the vandals that have those homing bullets. The tracer shanks are also very dangerous because they can one-shot you under the right circumstances, especially if you're not at full health. As you can see, I dropped down right back here because I did get hit with a tracer shank bullet from that left side of the room. So I want to make sure that I don't allow that tracer shank to get an angle on me. And again, you just want to play this part very, very, very slowly, very, very passively. Try and eliminate as many of those ads as you can before you start pushing up into the room. Because you don't want to push up too early and immediately get overwhelmed. Eventually, the second servitor will kind of start to come up the stairs a little bit to shield those middle ads. They do like to teleport around anytime they take the least little bit of damage. It does get a little bit annoying. Just be patient. Don't let it frustrate you. You will eventually get them down. You just kind of have to focus on some of the other ads that don't have a shield on them while the servitor is basically playing peekaboo with you. Now the nice thing about Graviton Forfeit as well is not only do you get that increase in melee energy regeneration, but you also get a really big bump to your recovery stat. So anytime you find yourself at low health, if your recovery stat's low, you can kind of bypass that recovery stat by going invis, and it will kind of jumpstart your healing a little bit. That's why I kind of did that right there. As you can see, I got tagged by that left tracer shank again. Honestly, I probably had just forgot it was there. Push comes to shove, especially if you're running Mobius Quiver. You can use that to take out the servitors because it will pop their shield and suppress them at the same time, and it makes it harder for them to teleport on you. And once I start getting these middle ad spawns here, I really, really, really like to stay far back and not push up into the room too early. Usually I don't try to push up into the room until the boss spawns. As you can see, we have more exploder shanks. You'll have about 3 waves of those. This is the second one here. And as you can see, that one up top kind of teleported up there through that doorway. That's why I don't like to stand up there, and I like to come to this back corner of the room. It's just easier that way. The big thing is remembering you don't have to use your smoke bomb for an invis if you need to suppress one of those exploder shanks so that it kind of gets away from you. It's okay to use it for that. Now anytime you see these fallen captains up as well, you don't want to give them too much of an angle on you. It seems that their guns can spam the homing shots a lot faster than the resilient vandals, so they can get overwhelming very quickly. Which is a lot of why I use Storm Chaser for this. You'll notice that I use my heavy a lot on some of the ads as opposed to the champions. It's just eliminate what I find to be the biggest threats as fast as possible. Alright, hold that, get this guy down. Alright, Alright, so you see I ran out of heavy ammo there. You can spam your heavy ammo and run out of it. That box will fill you back up to full. I don't usually like to use it until I get the boss down. In this instance, I actually did have to use it a little bit earlier. Regardless, though, it will all work out. You tend to, in this room especially, get a lot of heavy ammo bricks to drop. I actually stopped moving right here because I had to answer some Discord messages for my clan. As you can see right here, I'm kind of waiting the ads out a little bit, letting them come a little more forward out of their positions of cover back there, or behind those two glass panels that they like to hide behind when they spawn in the middle. They came out just a little bit. See those two tracer shanks back there in the back of the room. They can't really hit you from that far away, but I don't like to take chances, so as soon as I see those two guys come up, I try to get them down early. Now once you're through this back room portion of the ad spawn, you can push up just a little bit more. I kind of like to take this left side a little bit. It gives me a better view of when those exploder shanks spawn for the final time, and a long lane to kind of bait them down as I kill them one by one. That, and sometimes ads will like to pile up over here, and you don't want to push up into that middle platform if you haven't cleared that left side yet, just because the ads that potentially did move over there can make it very, very painful for you very, very quickly. Alright. Well, that time I did almost die using that super. Sometimes you'll use your super in this just to clear ads out. There's no shame in it. Sometimes it can make your life just a little bit easier to do it that way. By all means, do that if you need to. Now that I have my exploder shank spawned in, there's going to be two invisible marauders that are going to spawn with those guys, as well as a bunch of resilient wretches. And you can kind of just bait them down this left side so that you can single file them toward you. Makes it a little bit nicer on clearing them out. As you can see, I missed one. Little tactical smoke bomb there, hold that. A very easy way to deal with these guys too is just to kind of jump up in place as you're backing away and kind of fire your bow at them. It's a little bit easier to deal with them when you're airborne because they can't really fight back with their melee weapons then. As you can see, a third barrier does spawn with that wave of exploder shanks. Very important you kill the rest of those melee ads before you try and deal with this barrier champion. He will not push back into the room with you. He kind of just hangs out right there in front of that middle staircase, kind of protecting the boss. The final ad wave spawn is actually going to be two servitors and I believe a fallen captain. If I had my super already right here, I would try and at least kill one of the servitors right away, because they do get kind of annoying back there with the boss, especially when you have the boss shooting at you. Once the heavy shank dies, you can actually delay the boss spawning in by not killing that heavy shank as early. Because the boss usually will not spawn in until that heavy shank dies. So it kind of gives you time to clear some of the other ad waves before you have the boss shooting at you. Now this left side is actually really good for this boss, but what you have to really watch out for with it is those dust field grenades. Just make sure you get out of the line of fire or behind cover if she's going to freeze you with them. You don't want her to shatter you, because if she does, it's pretty much game over and you're going to have to restart. Once I keep dinking away at these ads, I'll eventually deal with the boss. And what I like to do when I deal with the boss is I like to kind of come toward the middle of the room. You're going to find she does not really have the best aim. Her bullets are very predictable. They're kind of very easy to work around. If you strafe dodge, you'll find she either shoots to the right or left of you. It's very rare that she actually shoots to the middle. If she does shoot to the middle like she did right there, you can actually just kind of jump up, and 9 times out of 10 it's not going to hit you. Especially from this distance, it takes 3 or 4 straight bullets from her to actually kill you. As you can see, I'm using the Rapid Fire Ranger mod as well on my artifact. It makes this a lot easier, especially going later on when you can suppress some of the ads, because sometimes it's like they can't actually dodge or run or do a lot of things when they are suppressed by that mod. And it's always nice to get that nice little damage boost to them as well. Alright, so once all this is done, do a final ammo sweep. Make sure you take out that mine too, because when you push up into this room, there's going to be a knight and an acolyte, and the last thing you want is to get suppressed by that mine and then firebombed by the acolyte. Kind of got around the door on me there. I actually did find this GM to be a lot easier in terms of just being able to play really passively and really far back than most that I've at least attempted to solo flawless. I believe the first one I ever attempted was the arms dealer back before they changed it. Now when I get to this room here, what I like to do is I like to prioritize the Vandal snipers, and you'll be able to differentiate them from the rest of the ads because they'll be the only 2 red bars in that room. If you can get them down as fast as possible, it's going to make your life a lot easier. If you can get the wizard down early too, it might make things a little bit easier, as you can see I was trying to do here. But the main thing is you want to get those snipers down, and then you can kind of focus up a little bit more on the acolytes. Now eventually what's going to happen is you're going to kill enough ads, or you'll move in close enough that 2 wretches will start to come toward you, as well as a sword knight. Now I always like to super the sword knight because he has one of those shields, and it's very hard to break it even with a linear fusion rifle unless you just hit him over the shield and in the head. Big thing to note about these wizards is if they're ever shooting at you and you're having a hard time with them, bring that trusty out and pop their shield. These wizards do like to kind of go run and hide when their shield is popped. There's a lot of times later in the GM that I pop the shield generally just so that they will stop shooting at me, and I can kind of get them off of me for a few seconds to clear some of the other ads that are around. Now this room's actually probably one of the easiest rooms in the entire GM. As you can see, what I'm doing here is I'm taking out the acolytes first. The only thing that can hit you back here in this opening are the acolytes' firebombs. That's why I take them out first, is so that they cannot firebomb me. The hive splinter guns can shoot at you from here, but it's very seldom they're actually going to hit you. That's why I take out the acolytes first, and then I go in for that barrier champion. Now once I eliminate all of that, I can play very passively for the rest of this room until it comes time to kill the enemies that are underneath the platform in front of me. First order of business before you push up into this room, though, is you want to take out that unstoppable champion. He will not shoot at you as long as you stay into this doorway, but as soon as you start stepping up into the room, that's when he's going to start rushing you. You can actually kill him very easily from this distance, because you can just keep looping, stunning him and shooting him with a few arrows, and then stunning him again and shooting him with a few arrows. There's no rush to actually push up into this room until he is down. And as you can see, there's some knight down there shooting below. He can't really hit me unless he starts coming up the stairs a little bit more. Generally, when I see him coming up the stairs a little bit more, I'll shift my attention to him, because if I can drop him quickly, it's going to make the next two barriers underneath me a lot easier. Unstoppable champions can't heal, so I can leave him, the ogre back there, alone for a few minutes. I'm checking the positioning of these barriers, because ideally I want to try and get them to where I can hit them, but they can't hit me. It is a possibility to achieve that. After a certain number of adds are dead, they do start to kind of push more toward the back of the room, which makes this easier. But if you're going to deal with them when they're both down there together, you want to try and get one of them to where you can see its head, but it can't shoot you, or the other one can't shoot you, and then start picking away at it. Once you have one dead, this kind of becomes a lot easier. The remaining one, once you have enough adds dead, will actually push back onto that platform to the right-hand side, which makes it a lot easier to deal with as well. This room is actually a pretty quick room to clear, as long as you're patient. The real danger in this room comes when the adds start to hide back there behind that glass panel, or behind the stairs. And the reason for that is because it forces you to have to push up and engage them at a dangerous range. So sometimes it's better to actually just play it safe and steer toward the back of the room and just let them come out of their own volition. As you can see, that knight kind of went off toward the very back of the room. But then again, I also want to get this acolyte down first so I don't get firebombed while I'm trying to fight this knight. Once I get into this next room, again, I'm going to kill these two acolytes first. The barrier champion, it's not really much of a threat from this distance, so I want to try and get that sword knight down as quick as I can so that it doesn't kind of start rushing up towards me and trying to whack me with its sword while I'm trying to deal with this barrier champion. But also you can take whichever one peeks their head out first. You can use this glass panel on your right hand side here to deal with this barrier a lot easier. You just kind of want to peek out in between its shots and take a few quick shots at it. Just think of it like playing Crucible or Trials or something, and just peek shooting. You know, to your left hand side, as soon as you get to this room, there's going to be two snipers. Definitely want to eliminate them before they see you, as they have a tendency to shoot at the same time, and it will drop you pretty much immediately. These two unstoppable champions, as long as you stay far enough away from them and you're patient enough to sit there and plink away at them with arrows, You can kill them from this distance, and they will never once shoot back at you. The only part you may shoot yourself in the foot with here on this is where it does take some time. What could end up happening is the Death Singer could hit that totem down there and suppress your abilities. It's not that big of a deal if this happens. It just means you're going to have to deal with the 2 Shriekers. And coming up, I'll show you how to deal with those a little bit safer. Because I don't believe I actually managed to kill the Death Singer before it started its song. It's a very long process to kill these 2 Unstoppables right here. But you want to maintain a good distance from them, because if you push up too far onto that left-hand side, they will start beaming at you. That's why I opted for the Scout Rifle as opposed to a Fusion Rifle. Sit here beaming these guys for days. You know, now that I watch it back, it's like... feels like it takes so much longer to actually kill them than it did when I was initially doing this run. I mean, as you can see, I can take my time with these. I could take all day with these Unstoppables if I really wanted to. This is a very safe distance and position to take them out from. Alright, so as soon as both of those guys are dead, even though it feels like it takes all year, you want to push down to the platform that they were actually standing on. This platform is going to be the perfect position for you to ad clear pretty much the entire next area. As you can see, the Death Singer hasn't started its song yet, so I'm going to take the time to kill these Acolytes. Now, once the Death Singer starts its song, it's going to spawn 2 Acolyte snipers. It's very important you take these 2 out first, above everything else, because these 2 are actually the only thing from this perch that can hit you. Everything else is pretty much a free kill. It might take some time, but you can sit here and plink everything to death. The only thing is, some, like the Knights and even the Invisible Marauders and the Death Singer, do like to kind of run around the room and take cover when they feel you damaging them. Just be patient. Do not push down into the room too early, because that's pretty much just signing a death warrant for yourself. Now, along with my abilities being suppressed by the Death Singer, you're going to notice that everything as well, all the ads, ended up getting an overshield off of the Death Singer. This overshield only takes like 1 Wish Ender shot to remove, so it's not that big of a deal. A nice tip for seeing these Invisible Marauders as well is if you're having a hard time seeing them, you can actually use the edge of your bow to kind of look for the distortion of their invisibility wherever you're pointing it at. I believe there's 4 or 5 of the Marauders. You can push down with a couple of them, 1 or 2 of them still alive. It just is very dangerous because they do have the Scorch Guns that will kill you very, very quickly if you let them get too close to you. Now, as long as your aim is good, you can actually fight this barrier from a good ways away. If you're not comfortable actually shooting it from this far away, you can drop down into the room and fight it from there. It's just easier if you want to get through this room quickly to just go ahead and fight it from up here. There's 2 barrier champions in this room. As you can see, there's this far one, and then there's one kinda down below. And that one's position is coming up soon. This one you can actually, if you can get it close to the edge, as you can see there, it'll dodge itself off the edge and kill itself. It will not kill it if you do not shoot it first. If you shoot it before it falls, it will kill it. If you do not shoot it before it falls, it will respawn back up top. Don't ask me why that works. I couldn't tell you. It's just something I've noticed in my various runs in order to get this actually done while I was attempting it. Now would really be one of those times that one of those glitch guns would come in handy. You have to play this room very patiently. Pretty much, you can just shoot whatever's in your sight line in this room. If some of the ads decide to take it upon themselves to go and hide, you can go ahead and start taking out some of the other ads. Eventually they will move out of their hiding spots. Some of them, though, you might actually have to go down there. You just want to make sure if you do have to go down there like I did here, that you take out the shriekers first. And you can do this by hiding behind this window and kind of peek shooting them. If you can't get them to open up when you step towards the edge of the platform, shoot them, and sometimes it will actually make them open up a little early. As you can see, I do with this one here. It's very imperative you do not try and go anywhere beyond this point until you get those shriekers dead. And we do have another ammo box here, so if you really wanted to use your heavy to get these guys out, you can. You just want to make sure that you don't use this heavy crate until you've expended all of your heavy ammo. Because it will refill it back to full, so if you try and use it too early, you're kind of gypping yourself out of some bullets. Once I get this die down, I can actually push up into the room. Which I might actually just have to push up to kill him anyway. So you don't want to push up too far into this next room, or this next portion of the room. Deal with these 2 acolytes first, and then a barrier champion will actually spawn on that platform that they're standing on. It's up to you whether you want to take out the barrier champion first, which is easy to do if it stays on the platform. If it drops down to the floor, I would advise taking the unstoppable champion out first before you go anywhere near the barrier champion. Now the big thing to remember here when you're dinking away at this unstoppable is make sure you take out those 2 fallen snipers on the left hand side first, because you don't want to forget that they're there while you're fighting this unstoppable and then they get double shot by them and wiped. Generally they do like to, the further you get this unstoppable's health down, they will actually start shooting at you. It's also very important to keep in mind that the other danger that kind of lurks in this room is a boomer knight that's over on that right hand side near the unstoppable. If he starts coming up the room and hitting you with that boomer before you have this unstoppable dead, make sure you stop damaging the unstoppable and take out the knight, as the unstoppable won't move from its position to actually shoot you unless you drop down to the platform that these acolytes are on. Nice miss. My arrow got bungee physics there. Now once you get into this next room, you want to play these lasers very carefully. But there is kind of a jump scare, and this is where an invisible hunter really comes in clutch, with these two barrier champions that spawn in front of this door. If you go invis right here, and then back away towards where you came into the room, and with Graviton Forfeit, your visibility should last long enough for you to only need one. Once you come back to this point in the room, those two barriers will actually go into the next room and into the middle by the wizards. So you no longer have to worry about them. You don't need to worry about killing them in this hallway. Now what I'm doing right here is I'm waiting for my super to come back, because on the other side of that door is two high splinter gun knights and a lot of acolytes, and I kind of want my super back so that I can deal with them more efficiently. I think actually right here I took some time to answer some more Discord messages. I'm actually going to use some kills here to try and get my super back a little bit faster so it's not taking all day. Just going to sit there and eat my ice cream alone, and character's gonna cry himself to sleep over why I'm putting him through this. Alright, so once I have my super back, I'm actually just gonna shoot it at the first knight that I see. As you can see, I whiffed that terribly. If I hadn't though, it would have been a really 200 IQ play. But unfortunately I did, so now I'm gonna have to give him the old Peter Dinklage and dink him to death. So once I come into this room, the big thing I want to start prioritizing are those acolytes until I see one of the first barrier champions, and thankfully it was the boomer champion. This is the one you want to kill first, if at all possible. This is the most dangerous barrier champion in this room, is this boomer. He can't end your run very quickly. As you can see, I'm starting to lay some heavy into him because I want this guy dead. Every now and again you'll be fighting a different one of these champions, and all of a sudden he'll come in and just start booming you, and it's just game over after that. Now there should be 5 barrier champions in here. There should be the boomer, high splinter gun, and I think 2 pulse gun knights, as well as that barrier servitor in the back of the room there. The barrier servitor is not really much of a danger, so you can leave him alive for quite a while. And it's not really going to hurt anything if you do. He doesn't really shield any of the ads around him unless you start damaging him. I'm going to start actually picking at him because he's just the first one that I see. This room's definitely a big waiting game for champions to put themselves in a good position for you to kill them, or ads to kind of rotate in and out behind cover. Now this is also the room that this trustee is really going to come in handy, because if this wizard up on the top left starts shooting at you, you can drop its shield, and as you can see there, it's going to retreat, which gives you time to focus on some of the other ads that are in the room. Luckily, these wizards also have terrible aim, so even something as simple as jumping up is going to throw their aim off. as soon as you start getting some more of these knights poking their heads out, start focusing up on them. That way they're not shooting you or you're trying to deal with the wizards come a few more minutes. And anytime you have a enemy that's just keeps hiding on you or doesn't really want to come out, don't try and push up into the room and get aggressive with them to try and kill them. This is a very, very quick recipe for getting yourself killed. And I decided to lay heavy into that guy and kill him before he actually retreated back because it looked like he was headed that way. You really, really want to try and clean all of the ads in this room before you start addressing these wizards. It's just gonna make your life so much easier. As you can see, I want to get Wizard Boy off of me, so I plink a couple shots into him. I always like to use my super on these guys. As you can see, I kind of whiffed that one. I don't know if you can tell this or not, but I'm not a hunter main. I'm actually a warlock main. So using a hunter after all this time was definitely a new experience for me. Once you start getting one of the wizards pretty much to the point that they're almost dead, you're going to notice that there's going to be Thrall and Curse Thrall that spawn. Let them come to you. Don't push up into the room after them or anything like that. They'll come down here eventually. And sometimes it's a little bit easier to get these wizards, especially if you're playing an Invisible Hunter, too finishable, so you can push up and just hit a finisher on them. Alright, pushing up and hit my finisher on this guy. Usually that extra invis off the finisher is going to help you get away from the other two wizards shooting at you. It's risky, but it usually works.
Now, as you can see, I'm going to start plinking away at this barrier champion here.
Finally. He's kind of been avoiding me this entire time. It's kind of annoying that he hides behind that just because you can really only hit him with when he expands to pop out his barrier, and it seems like it's very inconsistent to actually hit him there. So as you can see, I just moved on and started focusing on the other wizard. This wizard's really easy to hit once you have that top left one dead. Every now and again he'll get behind the barricade where the barrier champion likes to hide. But you can usually push forward far enough and hide behind those crates that you can hit him with arrows until he's dead. Once that one's dead, the only threat I have left on that left side is that barrier champion. Didn't have a choice but to use a super on him right there, just to try and control his position just a little bit. The servitor ones are always the most annoying because they can teleport all over the place on you. It looks like I finally have a good angle on him.
Position compromised. Protect ray asset.
Do one last sweep of the room to make sure everything's dead before I actually go in and start fighting this final wizard. You don't want any acolytes left to hit you with those fire bombs while you're trying to fight this wizard. So once it's down to just you and the wizard, this wizard really likes to hide in that back corner, but if you're able to get his shield down, it's usually gonna force him into hiding. As you can see, he dropped down and hid. He's gonna wait for his shield to come back right there.
Contact.
This wizard does get really frustrating, but it's very important to remember he can still kill you very, very quickly. So just make sure you don't get to a point where you're annoyed and just push in there to try and kill it. Always make sure you're just waiting it out. Eventually, you'll be able to get a few things with chip damage in there against them. Eventually, all that chip damage will add up and you'll take them out. As you can see, I got a little over-eager there and almost got myself killed. Which is very important to remember not to make that particular mistake, because it can be very costly.
Thermopylae protocol. Progressive.
I got a good greasy little angle on him. It's finishable. So I'm going to go in for that kill. Do a little 360 scan for ammo. At this point, I was actually very, very bored of the run.
Submine vault's locked down tight, but the maintenance shafts are just big enough to fit you and all that armor.
So if I'd had my melee charge there, I could have just meleeed down into that chute and had both my jump charges. Just make sure you use one to land and then one to slow your momentum at the bottom. Now come over to this right side. It's 2 acolyte snipers and a boomer knight on this side. I always try and have my super up for these 3 enemies right here. Mainly just to kill them very, very quickly, as you don't have a lot of room before those ads start to spawn behind you to actually get them down. So what you end up running into right here is you have a choice. You can either destroy the runes on the door and open the door, which will give you a heavy ammo box, or you can just sit here on this side and safely wait. I like to wait just because I don't really need the heavy ammo. It's really up to you, up to preference. The only thing that can reach you over here is there's 3 or 4 thrall that spawn every like 15-second interval. They'll try to come over here. If you just keep killing them, then you're fine over here. Once the timer hits 0, the door will open on its own. And then you'll have one last wave with a barrier champion to kill, and you're free to go into the boss room. I feel like it's much easier to do this method when you're solo, because you run into a lot of risk trying to do the runes. Unless you do that one directly above the door, but even then, the acolytes can firebomb up there, and you're in for a bad time if they do that. You see more Thriller spawning. Nice little Surgeon General medal. Cry alone, eat my ice cream. Spit and Jerry's. It's the good stuff. So your first order of business when this door actually opens and you can actually start killing some of the more of the ads, because right now if I killed the acolytes and the wizard it really wouldn't matter. They're just going to respawn until that timer hits 0. I actually picked a really good time to kill the wizard right there just because now it's not going to respawn. But you can just pick from the ads apart safely from here. I usually do push up a little bit if this barrier starts to push a little bit more onto that other platform in front of me. There you go. And he's down. Now usually once you take the barrier champion out, everything else despawns, but you still want to be very, very careful pushing up into that door, because there is a boomer knight on the other side of the room that can still hit you. That's why I kind of jumped right there instead of taking the straight path.
One big shrieky eye.
Now this room can be either very difficult or very easy depending on how you play it. Now what I'm going to do back here, and this is very important, in order to pull this method off, you have to line yourself up with that archway directly in the middle and mantle the peak of it. If you try to jump on top of the peak of it, you run the risk of sliding off the sides, which could end up like you always want to mantle it and then come up to these cables. These cables are your safe spot, they're your sweet spot. You can add clear from up here, you can damage the boss from up here. The big thing you want to watch out for up here though is there's going to be 2 tracer shanks that will spawn on the right side. That can be a bit of a pain, but there's also going to be these orbs, these exploding orbs that the boss spawns. He usually spawns 6 of them. So once he spawns them, you want to kill the ones that you can see. The rest of them are usually going to hit the backside of the cables in front of you there. Now, in order to prevent the explosion off of them from killing you, you want to back up until you see the joining allies, and then kind of step forward till you don't see it anymore, and then the explosion shouldn't damage you. Now, if you play up close on this cable, close enough, the tracer shanks won't be an issue. They usually spawn about halfway through his first health bar here. What I like to do is I'll actually crouch, just so that they don't have an angle on me. Every now and again you might have some wizards that try shooting you. Again, pop their shields with Trusty, they'll stop shooting you most of the time to go seek cover. Otherwise you can just kill them. Pretty much you just want to keep plinking away at the boss, whittling his health down slowly. Alright, so see there's the bombs that we're looking for. I'm actually... You can hear them coming toward the cable in front of me. I should have looked out there. I should have backed up a little farther so that they didn't hit me. Every now and again you might have one come up and over the cable at you. You just want to make sure to try and back away from it and shoot it before it detonates. I think it takes 2 detonations to kill you. And you will be at this for a while, plinking away at him.
But it's better to play it safe. I know a lot of people like to use the stair, going up and under the stairs on the right-hand side method.
That is not a bad method at all. The only risk you run into is at a certain interval, cursed thrall are going to start to spawn on the floor. And if you're not cognizant of them spawning, then they can wipe you very, very quickly. As you can see, I got hit by one of those detonations there. Should have backed up a little bit more and played it a little more safe. You always want to be mindful of when the wizards are able to shoot at you, because just like the tracer shanks, they can kill you very, very quickly. And you can use these cables to keep the boss from being able to hit you for pretty much the majority of this thing. See, spawned more of those orbs. That time I was able to see 3 of them. Back up just a little bit, and as you can see, they detonated on the other side of the cable there. Alright, so as you can see, this is the part where we're going to actually start dunking the orbs. What I like to do personally is I like to stay up here and actually add clear from up here. Pretty much everything. There'll be 3 wizards, 3 captains, 3 Vanquisher Knights with swords. The Vanquisher Knights actually won't keep respawning. The wizards will, on the other hand, and so will the captains. But I pretty much just add clear everything from up here. Now, when I hit a point where I actually can't see any more of the ads, because they're on the right-hand side of the room, you'll see me jump down and then go invisible and jump up to the other side so I can get a better angle on them. It's just very important you want to play this part very patiently. There's the one barrier that spawns after he is down, though. That's the only champion that spawns in this portion. So once he's down, you're free to kind of do your thing. There's an orb dupe that you can do to speed this process up. I don't like to do it. So I actually just dunk all 5 orbs. So what I'll do is I'll dunk an orb, and then I'll come back to this safe spot, re-add clear, go get another orb, dunk it, come back to my safe spot. Just back and forth over and over. As you can see, I almost died right there. That would have been very unfortunate this far in, because I have died quite a few times this far in before. Now you can kill one of these captains. Usually I kill the middle one first because he does not respawn. The other 2, if you kill them, they will respawn, but they'll spawn on the far back of the room. You kind of have to get to whichever one's easiest. Usually the one on the left-hand side of the room is a little bit safer to get to. And what you can't see right here is that there are a bunch of cursed thrall around that dunk spot. Which is very important. You play this part slowly. I have seen some other people play it a little more aggressively on some other videos. I chose not to do that just because, you know, after spending almost an hour making it this far, it would be a shame to get overconfident or overzealous and actually get myself killed. But I'm just basing this on my own ability. Some of those guys, phenomenal players, you know, they probably a little better at staying alive on the classes they chose for this in those types of circumstances. I just know on a hunter I wouldn't be able to do it. Kind of get a layout of the room there. Let's see what all I have left to kill. Yep. Dink him to death. I try not to use my Trapper's Ambush on the bridge because I'm not confident in my ability to land on the bridge, and I didn't want to wipe myself there. Dodge near the enemies to get my melee charge back. Now you'll notice once you drop down here, there's a lot more enemies down here than you really think there are when you're standing up there. And it's always good to kind of drop down like that to draw them out. And then start kind of plinking away at them and picking them off little by little. Now every time you dunk an orb, you're always going to get wizard spawns. It's very important to take the wizards out as fast as you can. They're really your biggest threat in this room, at this point at least. Patiently waiting for one of them to rear their ugly head. And we're waiting, and we're waiting, and we're jumping because we got annoyed. Sometimes that particular wizard likes to go up and under the stairs on the right side. You just want to make sure you don't forget that he's there if he decides to do that. Because that is a nasty surprise when you jump down and there's this one wizard you thought was dead, but he really wasn't. Just waiting there for you. The more patient you play this room, the better off you're going to be. I actually had a little bit of a graphical glitch there, as you saw. My Elgato kind of froze up a little bit. But it came back very quickly just as well. Oh, frame rate stutter. As you can see, I did mess up and leave a wizard alive. It's fine if this does happen to you. It's not the end of the world. Just play this as carefully as you can. As you can see, I got up there to dunk the orb, and it despawned on me. Which, we love it when that happens. You know, it adds a little bit of spice to everything. Adds a little bit of zest. Zesty goodness for your run. But hey, at least I was able to draw the wizard back out so I could kill it. These guys are forever teleporting. I'm just glad they're not overloads in this. Now this one I'm gonna dunk. I'm gonna dunk this one for sure, I promise. There we go. You can definitely tell I don't play a hunter a lot right here because I completely had my ability loop backward.
I'm using Trapper's Ambush when I should be dodging to get my Trapper's Ambush back. Try to get my bearings in the room right here so that I can figure out what I still have left to kill. As you can see, unfortunately, this wizard is on the left-hand side, so that means I'm going to have to cross the bridge. I like to cross whenever I have to do that on the back side of the bridge if I can hit my jump, which apparently I suck, so yeah, so I almost got myself killed right there too. Luckily I was able to land on that spot though. Now the reason I kind of like to land more toward the back of the bridge is that way I don't get focus fired. The ads still can focus fire you back there, but they're much less likely to aim at you when you're back there than if you're up closer to them on that bridge. Switch sides again. Apparently I still suck at jumping. I promise I'm a pleasure to have during platforming puzzles. Looking at you, Valve Disciple. Generally, what I like to do here is pick a captain on one side of the room, and that's going to be the one that I'm going to focus on. Personally, I feel like the captain on the left-hand side of the room is actually the easier one after doing this, because you can get there and back very, very safely without the next captain spawning directly on top of you almost. Hey, I actually did that one in one shot. I have seen, like, Esoteric and some other people use a different elemental scout rifle for this. I feel like solar would work better for me because I was just using Storm Chaser to pop arc shields anyway. But that trusty really comes in handy for popping those wizards and getting them off of you. I don't feel like I can ever say that enough. Surroundings a little bit. Make sure there's no more ads. I can actually see that wizard all the way back there. Just was not able to hit him with the trusty. See, this captain is kind of playing a little game of peekaboo, so I got annoyed and just went to the one on the left-hand side. This is actually kind of how I found out, oh, this guy's actually a pretty safe bet to do this side instead of the other side. Wizards on this one. I feel like the biggest skill you can kind of master on doing these solo GMs is patience. Sometimes being patient will keep you alive a million times better than even a really strong build. As you can see, I chose to go for the captain on the left side again. That one just felt easier to me. He doesn't have as much to hide behind as the one on the right-hand side. So it actually made it a lot easier pickings to get him down as opposed to the other one. We are back on to boss damage. Now the big thing to take note in the second half of the fight is you really want to make sure that you're getting these wizards down when you see them, because the boss moves around a substantial amount more than he did in the first phase. And it's very unfortunate if you get to a position where the wizards can see you, but the boss can see you as well. Usually, it's not a position you want to be in. As you can see, it's very hard to get a good angle on him to actually fight back, given the position he's in. Now, while I could have used my super probably right here, and I probably should have, it just felt like a better call to be patient and just kind of plink away with damage. For some reason right here, he didn't want to open up to actually let me damage him. Also seems like he does those homing bombs a little bit more during the second phase as well. It's just very important to maintain your composure throughout this portion of the fight. I know you get kind of hungry for the kill in a little bit. You can see I do as well. But just remember to play it safe, be patient. Don't get too far ahead of yourself. That was what I was talking about earlier, where sometimes they can actually come up and over the cables and track to you and still hit you. It's very rare that it happens, but it does happen. That's why you want to back up so that you are at full health if that ever does happen. As you can see, the lower his health gets, the hungrier I start to get for that kill. Actually whiffed my shot twice because bungee physics right there. But yeah, the safer you play this, the better off you're going to be, and eventually you will get through it. But that is definitely all. I hope you all enjoyed my commentary. Don't forget to give me a like, a subscribe, or a follow. And also check me out on Twitch. You know, I try and stream most of the time, try and stream on the weekends. As always, I am Boro, and GG.
Got caught up chasing the promises of the Golden Age before I learned about who you really were.
And now you're taking on my life's work as your own.